She stood at the edge of the courtyard, half hidden behind a marble pillar, watching the wedding photographer arrange smiles that didn't include her. The bride's veil shimmered in the afternoon sun. The Navy groom stood tall in his uniform, and the guests laughed as if this moment were perfect. It almost was, except for the woman no one had asked to step into the frame, the one whose hands trembled as she folded them together and told herself not to cry. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who's listening. Her name was Eleanor Brooks, and she had learned long ago how to make herself small. She had learned it in waiting rooms and kitchens where conversations stopped when she entered, in moments when love felt conditional. Today, she told herself, was not about her. Today was about her son, Daniel, and the woman he loved. So Eleanor smiled politely at passersby, even as something inside her tightened with each click of the camera she wasn't part of. The courtyard smelled of fresh flowers and polished stone. A breeze lifted the edges of programs and tugged gently at Eleanor's cardigan. She remembered buttoning it that morning with careful hands, choosing a soft blue she knew Daniel liked. He had liked it when he was small, when he still reached for her hand without hesitation. She wondered when that changed, when distance had crept in like fog, quiet and unannounced. The photographer called for the groom's family. Daniel stepped forward with his father, his posture instinctively straight, Navy training etched into every movement. Eleanor waited, heart lifting, certain someone would gesture for her to join them. Seconds passed. The photographer adjusted his lens. Laughter rippled. No one looked her way. She told herself not to read into it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they'd call her next. She shifted her weight, shoes pressing into the stone, and watched as another photo was taken without her. Her chest ached not with anger, but with a familiar, dull sadness. She thought of late nights, of packed lunches, of letters written when Daniel was deployed, each one ending with the same words, "Come home safe." Daniel glanced around between shots, scanning faces. His eyes passed over Eleanor once, twice. She wasn't sure if he saw her. She wasn't sure if he understood. As the ceremony ended and guests moved toward the reception, murmurs filled the air. Glasses clinked. Music floated from inside. Eleanor lingered near the courtyard, unsure where she belonged. She considered slipping away quietly, leaving behind a card and a gift, sparing herself the discomfort of being present but unseen. Then she noticed Daniel standing alone near the steps, his expression distant. The joy of the day sat on him, but so did something heavier. He watched guests laugh and pose, his jaw tightening slightly, as if a thought had lodged there and refused to move. He remembered things then, things he hadn't let himself dwell on. His mother waiting up for him when he missed curfew. Her voice steady on the phone during his first deployment, even as worry cracked beneath it. The sacrifices that never made it into speeches or photographs. He looked again toward the courtyard. Eleanor stood exactly where she had been before, hands clasped, eyes lowered, trying to disappear. The sight struck him harder than he expected. Quiet wrongness settled in his chest. This was his wedding day. This was meant to be a celebration of love, of foundations laid long before vows were spoken. And somehow the woman who had been his first anchor stood alone. Daniel took a breath. The kind he'd learned to take before making a hard call. The photographer called out again, urging the couple to hurry inside for the next set of photos. Guests flowed past Daniel like a tide. He stepped forward, then stopped. He turned, sharply, the polished buttons of his uniform catching the light. The courtyard hushed, not all at once, but enough to be felt. Daniel walked toward Eleanor with measured steps, each one deliberate. Conversations faltered. A few heads turned. Eleanor looked up, surprised, as her son approached. For a moment neither spoke. The air seemed to hold its breath. Daniel did something no one expected. He stepped back, straightened, and raised his hand in a crisp, unmistakable salute. It was flawless, precise, full of meaning. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A whisper moved like wind through leaves. Eleanor froze, unsure what she was seeing. Her eyes filled before she could stop them. Daniel held the salute, his gaze steady, honoring her not as an afterthought, but as someone worthy of the highest respect he knew how to give. "This," he said quietly, voice carrying just enough, "is my mother." The silence broke, replaced by a swell of emotion that spread through the courtyard. Applause rose, hesitant at first, then strong. Eleanor's hands flew to her mouth. She shook her head, overwhelmed, tears slipping free despite her efforts. Daniel lowered his hand and took her arm gently. "Come with me," he said. They walked back toward the photographer together. Eleanor's steps were unsteady, but Daniel matched her pace, solid and present. The photographer blinked, then nodded, repositioning the group without a word. Eleanor was placed front and center, Daniel's hand resting lightly over hers. As the camera clicked, Eleanor felt something shift inside her. A long-held belief that she was invisible, secondary cracked open. She looked up at Daniel, saw pride there, and something like apology. She squeezed his hand, unable to speak. Later, during the reception, guests approached her, one by one. Some offered hugs, others quiet words. The bride knelt beside her chair, thanking her for raising the man she loved. Eleanor listened, smiled, absorbed it all like warmth after a long winter. Daniel found her again as the evening softened. Music played, laughter echoed, and lights glowed against the darkening sky. He sat beside her. No uniform stiffness now, just a son with his mother. "I'm sorry," he said simply. Eleanor shook her head. "You don't need to be," she replied. And in that moment, she meant it. The night ended with dancing and farewells. But the image lingered, a Navy groom standing tall, choosing honor over convenience, choosing love where it mattered most. Because respect doesn't need a spotlight, it creates one. And the woman once left at the edge of the picture walked home knowing that even when love feels unseen, it can still rise, stand straight, and salute you when it matters most. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe to Cinematic Whispers for more stories that remind us why empathy, courage, and quiet love still change everything.